Hi traders, a lovely weekend where I am, and I hope it was where you are too. Straight into the markets. This is the Nikkei on the fibs on the daily chart. We've got a hangman right underneath this crucial fib level, 38.2%. We start closing underneath that on Monday, and then this could trigger some weak markets. If we look at the Dow is really struggling up here. It's not far off where we sold off from before. Topping tails, reversal bar, high RSI, not extreme RSI. I think if we look at the weekly chart, you can see that's actually a very bullish close. Now the ATMA is right down there at 15,300. Which is just around this monthly R1. I think that is the level at which I would look for a pullback, and I would still buy this market. I don't think this market will sell off. What I do think is I think it will drift lower, and then once we touch 15,300, we will lift higher. Let's look at the euro. So I meant the FTSE. This is the FTSE. The FTSE on the weekly chart. 3 higher closes, getting a little top heavy with that topping tail. Put the fibs on, and we've almost touched 23.6% and just narrowly closing above 38.2. Down to the daily, and you can see this is very toppy as well, more toppy than the Dow. So I'm looking for some short-term selling, but some buying on pullbacks. Now let's look at the dollar pairs. Pound, excuse me. I think after this big move on Wednesday, I think this can still lift up. But I have to say it's not a great chart. It is a massive move into the Asian session, so we drifted sideways, and then late after the US close on the Fed minutes, it shot up and just moved sideways. So a very difficult week, I have to say. Not a great week for me. No doubt your account is not looking that great either. Fibs on the daily chart, so we've smashed into 38.2 again. So might see some drift, might see some pullbacks to the 150 again. At which point I think 150 will get bought. A lot of people came out saying, "Oh, the pound is heading for 140." Maybe they're right, but I'm not seeing that at the moment. And if that trend line can hold, in fact, even if that trend line can hold on my chart, it might help. It's not holding. So if we move sideways and hold that level, then I start buying down here. But I would just buy. I would buy lower levels, 150 area, 150.40, to see if that can move up to that moving average. Euro. If you look at this on the weekly, this is a decent close. The euro is stronger than the pound. Look at that close above the 50 EMA. So a pullback is obviously the big 130. I think that's capable of going back to 133. That's engulfed the previous week's. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. That's engulfed the previous week's bar. Let's look at stay with the dollar pairs. Let's look at the US dollar CAD on the weekly chart. That's very weak. There's the major support line, 144.40. We've closed under 104. US dollar Swissy. So weak dollar bodes well for the market. That's almost engulfed the previous week's bar. US dollar yen. We're moving on to the yen pairs now. Now that's engulfed the previous week's bar. So this US dollar yen was really struggling. I was buying the lows on this, and it just wouldn't do it. We've got an 8 and 20 EMA above it here on the daily. So we're sitting above 50%. We haven't had a higher close in the weekly. No, sorry, engulfed in the weekly. This is the daily. Close above 99.40, I would be a buyer. The fact we've had two higher closes on Thursday, Friday, to me does suggest there is a potential for the breakout. Pound yen, really a lot of sideways action this week, just clinging on to the fibs. I actually think this will have a good week. I think it's time the pound perked up. If they're not going to sell it, then I think they're going to have to run it up. I don't know why that's not allowing me to draw. But I would be a buyer of any dips in this pound yen to 149.50 if I can get it. I have to admit that's not a great chart. I mean, a lot of red here. We hold the 76.4. We drift sideways. Blue bar on Thursday, red bar on Friday. That is not great. And we can't close above the daily 8. So I'm always suspicious about charts that can't do that. But I just think they can't sell it either. The euro yen, however, is probably the better bet, I have to say. And look at that. A lot of bottoming tails on this chart. If we could just close above 130 this week, I think this will fly. So the euro yen is better, and that's sitting on a trend line. So a break of the high 130 on the euro, which is pretty similar to where we are on the euro US. I think that is a goer. Pound Aussie dollar, which I called early part of the week, a humongous move, beautiful move. So we took a long time to climb up here to close to 170, and in the last 3 days we've moved 400-500 points. I would still be a buyer at 166. If I can see 166, I would still be a buyer of that one. I think that still got legs. CAD Swissy I talked about. Now this CAD's coming for a lot of strength. Sorry, what? The Swissy's coming for a lot of strength. So the CAD has suffered. Lovely move up to R1. I would leave it, and that's potentially a reversal bar on the 50 MA. But I would still keep tabs on it. Aussie US week. So I'm really focusing on the euro yen this week. I think the euro yen has got the best. The euro yen and the US dollar yen is where I would look to make my money this week. And any touches of lows in the pound. Right, moving on. Oil. Big sell off on Thursday, bounce on Friday. High RSI still. All touches of the 8 have been bought on this since we came off 94. You would have to argue for the bulls. Any 105 is still there. We've not tested R3, monthly R3, so I would look to buy any pullback, preferably 104.80, 105, to see if that can still move to the upside. Gold. I think if we break 130, we're going to move up to 13.28. Break that low of 12.69, we are lower. My preference is for higher. Let's move across to some other commodities. Let's keep an eye on the other commodities. The copper is struggling. So it sold off here in April. It found its lows in June, starting to climb. If the copper can close above 32.130, I would expect that to go. Not a great chart. I mean, this could be just a fade of the 50 MA. But I think we'll probably move sideways, retest this hammer down here at 31 before going up to R3. So I would be a buyer of that at 31. The beans, the grains, are not doing well this year. It must be a good crop because that is very weak. So that's now a short at 12.65 on the beans. UK stocks first. Generally pretty good. I mean, Vodafone bounced back off that 175. Scottish and Southern looking weak. That's 2-week closes Thursday, Friday. Yeah, it's smashed into monthly 1600. Just breached the 1600, but looks as if that's drifting lower. Rolls hovering at 12. Ugly chart. Very ugly. If that starts closing below 11.95, I would have some concerns about that. Premier Foods had a good move up. Did nothing. Did nothing along here. So it smashed right into that resistance, 73. It was a buy down there at 62. I still think that's a buy. If we see 68, I would be a buyer of Premier Foods. And Domino Pizza. I think this is a buy. I would go in at 636 to see if that can close the gap at 665 and hold. US stocks, I like Apple and Pot. This is Apple. I would buy a retest of 42 if I can get it, because there's massive support down here at 42. So I'd look to buy at 42, see if that can hold. Pot, and I think so. The beans are weak. This does tend to move with the grains. So we had a move up here through the trend line to 43.66. We had a new high in this little run and engulfed it on Friday. I would look for a pullback. I'm going to look to see if we can come down to 38.58 and hold. Why am I looking at this and looking to buy? Because look at the weekly. The weekly cleans the story up for me. The story for me is that this had a massive move up here in 2010. Got very nice and high up here at 63.20, and then just ground its way down. That's a hammer last week and a close above. Sorry, hammer 2 weeks back, close above last week. So 63.95, 63.85. We'll retest that hammer. 63.55 be a great place to buy, because if that comes up here and starts breaking 44, then I would expect that to try to make a dash for the highs. I love this. This is my favorite chart pattern. I'm prepared to risk going in at these low levels, relatively close stop, to see if that can move. I'm not going to buy up here. I'm going to wait for a deeper pullback. Okay, but if you just look across, Goldman's has been flying. This is a weekly chart, don't forget. And Bank of America. So bullish chart. That's why I'm not looking to sell the Dow. I'm looking for the Dow to come off. There's the weekly Dow. To come off around about the 15,300 to see if we can make a dash for 15,700. Alright, I hope that helps, and look forward to seeing you at Traders Roundtable. I'm going to do a short slide presentation on the essentials of maintaining your account and growing your account. Okay? Enjoy the rest of your weekend.